Welcome to Season 3 of Our World with Norman Busigu. Now, the premise of this show is quite simple. I'm going to report on and explore important topics affecting real people like you and me. Now, within this, there are two aims. Firstly, to have a positive social impact, and secondly, to inform. Now, in this episode, I'll be interviewing Dr. Raphael Olaiya, a man of many talents who simultaneously exists in the worlds of medicine, media, fitness, and technology. Now, in this interview, I'll be learning about his exciting journey to becoming a doctor and some of his experiences as a doctor whilst on the front line in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic. I'll also be learning about his unique experiences and his unique perspectives on the future of healthcare and health tech. And I promise you, he's the right man to give us these insights, as he's produced the world's first accredited virtual reality basic life support course in 2015, has peer-assessed academic authors on machine learning and medicine, and ultimately is pioneering a new generation of healthcare by combining personalized medicine with machine learning. We'll be discussing all of this and much, much more. So stay tuned because you don't want to miss this. And we are here this afternoon for this episode of Our World with Norman Busigu. We have a very special guest of ours, Dr. Raphael Olaiya. How are you this afternoon on this blustery February afternoon? How are you?
I'm good, thank you, Norman. It's a pleasure to be with you, I must say.
Awesome. No, thank you so much for coming down because, look, just to give some context to the world right now, we've had storms Franklin and Eunice, there's warfare going on in Europe, there's still the virus still lurking outside. So thank you for leaving the safety of your home to join us here this afternoon. It means a lot to us. And I'm really excited to pick your brains on a lot of important topics concerning the future of healthcare, fitness, technology, your career, and so on and so forth. But before we go into any of that sort of where we are now, the future, where you think things are going, I'd like to take a step back and really go back to the origins of your sort of journey with medicine. So my first question to you, Raph, if I can call you Raph, is that cool?
Yeah, that's fine.
Awesome, cool. What was your initial inspiration to become a doctor? Are you able to speak on that very quickly?
Yeah, so it's a very deep question because the simple answer, which I think a lot of people look for, is, oh, your dad's a doctor or everyone else in your family does medicine, so that's probably why you did it. But on the surface, that's an element of it, but they got to a point when I was making the decision to do medicine and in medical school where I was thinking about changing. And I was thinking, okay, why do I really want to do this? And it goes back to my childhood, really. The things that would excite me, the things that, and the experiences that made me feel the most alive were things to do with experimentation, furthering technology and the unknown. And I think that was really science, and watching sci-fi films, sci-fi cartoons, Spider-Man, Marvel, and in every Marvel cartoon they're pushing the limits of innovation, even if it's things that are completely unbelievable, but they were really exciting. And I feel medicine, because it's got the clinical part where you're actually doing something, as opposed to compared to just research where it's more academic. You've got both, and medicine for me, it puts you in a place where you can actually implement your thoughts and research and bring them together in the best way.
Amazing. I love that perspective on it. I've never actually heard that approach to it as far as the innovation angle. I just it's more usually my family or medicine, or I have my own personal reasons. But the innovation angle, I love that, and the link to Marvel as well. But just going a bit further ahead in the timeline. So you've made your decision. I want to study medicine, and that's what sort of captivated you from a younger age. What was your experience studying medicine at university like? So you've got the grades that you need to, you're now at university. What was that experience like, if you can break that down very quickly?
Yeah, it was a great experience because I was at Liverpool. And Liverpool, they put you in the clinical situation very quickly in second year compared to other universities where you have to wait till fourth year. Okay. So it's very practical. Cool. And you get to interact with patients and actually feel like you're helping someone and feel like a real doctor. So, and also, you're in a city where you become very independent very quickly. I was halfway across the country and in a place where I couldn't really understand what they were saying at the start because the Scouse accent is so strong. So it's really a place to find yourself. And I think that's an important part of what university is all about. Yeah. I mean, of course, medicine is easy to say. You need university to become a doctor because what's involved. But other courses, there's the big debate about, is university really necessary for other courses that are less practical or they don't need any specific apparatus. And I think being in a situation where you're by yourself, you're forced to think for yourself, and otherwise, you're not going to do what you want or get what you want. And for me, that was the biggest gain from a university for me. And Liverpool is perfect for that because it's a small city, it's pretty cheap, it's pretty safe, even though some people think it's not safe, but it is very safe.
Amazing. And just for context, where were you coming from, sort of your background? Was it London? Was it, what city was your origin sort of base where you were traveling from? Where were you coming from?
Torquay in Devonshire.
Devonshire.
So a very quiet, quaint, countryside sort of place.
Okay.
Very English, not very diverse at all. So,
Okay, so was that a big sort of culture shock for you? Because again, Liverpool's not a London, but it's still quite different in that, you've got way more different demographics there and a lot more culturally happening there, you could argue. So was it a culture shock for you, or was it just like a thing you really embraced and took on and just really jumped into then? Or did it take some time to get used to?
Yeah, I wouldn't say a culture shock because I was really looking forward to the diversity, not just ethnically, but culturally. And that was probably the biggest thing culturally because sometimes when we think of diversity, we think of a race or I was thinking about diversity as race at that time, but there it was really culture shock. And regardless of what race people were from in Liverpool, there was that strong identity that, we're Scouse, we're from Liverpool, and everything else is secondary. And for me, that was like, wow, it's really about culture then, and whatever comes with that.
Cool, I love that. I love that. So fast forward university, you've had your time at Liverpool, and you've just grown as a person in all those ways you've described. Fast forward to you now being a doctor. Could you explain in as layman-friendly terms as possible what kind of doctor you are, so sort of the specialism that you're in, and what drew you to this specialism that you currently practice in?
So my medical professional journey started with emergency medicine after I finished foundation, which is when you finish medical school, you have 2 years where you're sort of doing more admin work and trainee work. And then after you start to specialize. So I did 2 years of emergency medicine. And then I wanted to, explore more of a portfolio in my other interests, my other professional interests, which are mainly technology and innovation, and also media and the sort of communication of healthcare to people that need it most and the stakeholders. So general practice fit that portfolio the best. So now I'm part-time general practice. So I do that 2 days a week. And in general practice, you can kind of make it what you want because it gives you a fundamental skill set in all the specialities within reason. So of course you can't do specialist procedures, but you can do pretty much basics and intermediate work when it comes to speciality. So in general practice, my focus is more emergency acute care work. And then the other half of the week, I'm doing mostly health data science. So that involves machine learning for healthcare, where we're using big data in healthcare from hospitals' computer systems or records to help make better decisions for the patient or for investigations or to make applications for patients so their lives can be easier, whether it could be for well-being, so not a particular condition, or for a condition just to make their lifestyle and coping with the condition easier, like diabetes, for example, making their blood glucose monitor give them more actionable insights that they can understand, as opposed to seeing numbers on a graph that don't make sense to them. I guess I'm digressing slightly from this point, but we're seeing a shift in healthcare right now, where it's becoming more about the patient and them taking more control. The past healthcare's been more about the disease model. If you have this disease, then we'll give you this treatment for it, and there's nothing else outside that. But for me, it's always been about what does the patient actually want. The patient's not thinking about I've got this condition, what do I need to fix it. They're thinking about I want to be happy. I want to do the things that make my life worth living. Everything else is secondary. So everything else, I think, are just buzzwords that complicate things. For some people, they mean something, but for most people, they're like, doctor, what do you mean by that? So what does that mean? Am I going to get to see my kids? Am I going to get to spend time with my loved ones? Am I going to be able to eat the foods I want and be happy? And everything else is just semantics. And as doctors, I think that's our role, to bring those things together and say, we know the the clinical, technical part, but how do we translate that into something which is useful and valuable for your life? And doctors aren't really trained in that art, because in that translation, it's psychology, it's understanding the person, and also being able to communicate back and help them on that journey to be the sort of person that they want to be. And doctors aren't trained like that. So I see my career focused on what I've just described, and there's no particular word for it.
No, but it's an eclectic mix of many things. And
Exactly.
It's the perfect segue onto literally my next question, which is your perspectives on the future of healthcare and health tech. It's a beautiful way you've sort of packaged that. And to give some context to Raf, you really are, I think, to say, you're at the cutting edge of work concerning the intersections of virtual reality, artificial intelligence, and healthcare. And it's really exciting to see what's happening in that space, just through sort of seeing your social media, your profile, and things that are going on. Now, you kind of touched on it a little bit, but I'd love for you to go a little bit more in detail here. If you're able to break down for us sort of advancements that are happening in healthcare and where you think things are going in the context of virtual reality, artificial intelligence, and healthcare, could you break that down a bit more for us? You touched on it a bit before, but if you could really zone into that more now with your specialism as well, that would be great. Yeah.
The advancements in healthcare, we can break them down into more patient-focused advancements, and then more hospital, care-focused advancements. Cool. So from the patient perspective, we're going to see healthcare become more patient-centered and patient-focused. What that means in a practical way is that the care is going to be more about them and what makes them unique and different to other patients. For example, their genes, their lifestyle, what they eat, what they want in life. So as opposed to healthcare, it's going to be more well-being care, and healthcare comes into that. And we're going to see advancements around that. Specific advancements in that are going to include virtual reality. That could mean that actual treatments can take place in a metaverse where you're it could be more psychological-based treatments, for example, which is easy to understand in virtual reality, where you're speaking to a practitioner and you're doing a therapy which works best using virtual reality. For example, it could be phobia therapy, if someone's scared of bees, for example, or if someone has trauma that they need to deal with and they can use the space around them. For actual physical medicine, so pharmaceuticals, for example, which most people understand as medicine, the main advancements are going to be using different elements of machine learning and artificial intelligence, and that is going to practically be new drug development, using machine learning to try different types of molecular formats that haven't been tried before. Because what machine learning can do that we can't do at all is run algorithms that can try many different examples or formats of the molecule, and we're going to see advancements there. So, and that means for people's specific genotype, medication could be specifically for them, because the way in which conditions are organized right now, they're organized in anecdotal ways that are basically from trial and error. We'll try this, does it work? Okay, if it worked, we'll try and figure out why it worked, as opposed to thinking more like a physicist or a chemist or someone that uses the empirical method in more of a rigorous way. They think, hold on, this is what we know is true. Here's the first principle. Let's do something or try and make or manage this so we help or we move towards our goal. And medicine, because we're understanding the fundamental principles of biology, which really comes down to physics and chemistry, and we're building up from there. So that's how machine learning and artificial intelligence is going to be used on the pharmaceutical side. Cool. Yeah.
Honestly, thank you for, again, that very comprehensive sort of insight into where you think things are going. And it's really exciting for us to know, because, again, the world is changing at such a rapid, I think every day is literally a new day in the human experience. It's never been this dramatic. And on that note of the world changing every day, honestly, I think it's safe to say the human experience because of the pandemic is no longer the same. It's just dramatically shifted, in our day-to-day understanding of life is constantly evolving, and we're having to adapt with the changes. But really zoning into the effects of COVID-19 and sort of the things that you've seen, it'll be great if you could answer this, but if you're not able to, that's absolutely fine. But I would love, if possible, if you're able to share any reflections that you have from your time working as a doctor on the front line, because there was a period of time, let's say from March 2020, where, you know, I'm watching the news and I'm seeing there's no PPE equipment for staff, there's no ventilators, there's no beds, and I'm just watching that as someone who's not in medicine or in the science world, like, oh my God, this is looking apocalyptic, this is crazy. Just imagine what the nurses and the doctors and the medical staff are going through. So somebody like yourself who was in the midst of that, sort of the eye of the storm, as it were, are you able to speak on any experiences, any lessons learned, or any anecdotes of that time in particular where things were really bleak, where it was like 1,000 deaths a day and there was no ventilators and the third? Are you able to share any stories or thoughts on that? If you're not, that's fine. But
it's a great question, because what was being shown on the TV screens, it seemed like a movie. You know, you said apocalyptic, and I think that's the right word. And to be honest, at the start of the pandemic, it literally was like that on the front line, to be honest. You know, when we would be called in as junior doctors to give a death certificate or confirm a dead body, instead of going to the mortuary, which is where they usually keep them in nice, organised boxes, it was on a lorry. You know, and I was thinking, are we in England? Are we in, you know, one of the most developed countries in the world? And bodies are lined up next to each other in bags. And I'm thinking, wow, there's really a problem here. Not just that, you know, we were seeing A&E departments completely overrun in terms of how busy they were. And, you know, hats off to the NHS and how flexible it is. You know, the NHS gets a lot of flack and criticism because sometimes the standards can seem low in some ways of looking at it, in some perspectives. But in other perspectives, in terms of how flexible it is and how it's free at the point of care and it's very social for people that aren't helping themselves at all, it's in the top 3 in the world for cost effectiveness. So how was the pandemic? At the start, working on the front line in acute medicine, I saw the journey from not believing COVID exists, and
I remember that time,
it
being myth and conspiracies,
and then a complete 180 in terms of COVID does exist, and we need to take it very seriously, so seriously that you could lose your job if you don't listen to us. And there was a whole psychological, social side to it as well that was an issue as well. An important aspect to talk about the experience of healthcare professionals when it comes to COVID was that the British mentality towards being a bit stone-faced and not emotional. From a healthcare professional's perspective, I saw that with my colleagues, and we wouldn't talk about how we're feeling, how we feel after we've seen that many dead bodies in a lorry, how we feel after we see someone in their 30s that was previously fit and well, you know, dying in the ICU, or we can see multiple patients that are previously fit and well look like, and we know they look like that at least a few of them are going to die, and we have to speak to their family. That can affect you, and we're not trained for that. You know, there's no psychological support. There wasn't then, and in other countries there are. So how did it make us feel? It definitely made me feel that and understand about the culture of Britain more, especially as healthcare professionals, and something needs to be done about it. You know, at the end of a rotation, which is where you change to a different speciality, I wanted to share a poem with my colleagues, and it was something I wrote, and it was quite heartfelt, essentially saying, you know, guys, this is once in a lifetime opportunity or once in a lifetime situation that I've shared with you guys. We've been through a difficult time together, and I just want to kind of remember it and share this poem with you, so you know we can put a stamp on this and move forward. Because I think you need to reconcile, or at least consider what you've been through to be able to move on.
That level of closure,
closure, and we weren't doing that, and that was met with a level of awkwardness because people didn't really know how to deal with it. So, but now moving on from the heavy, dense COVID situation which we had over the past 2 years, I don't want it to be forgotten about, and I don't think it will. But yeah, we'll see.
We'll see. We'll see. And just transitioning onto sort of a brighter note, more back to you and sort of the work that you've been doing more generally, I think it's safe to say that you are, well, I can say this to someone watching your journey, you really are developing a trailblazing portfolio career and really do have an entrepreneurial spirit about you. For example, if we look at your media work, for example, just this week you were on a 2-part BBC documentary, which The Guardian, if I believe I'm correct, they said it was the most intelligent reality TV show in recent times. Something to that effect.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's that, you know, being BBC, you've led lectures on innovation in healthcare, you know, you're very big into fitness as well, and of course, you being a doctor. So my question at this point is, where does this entrepreneurial spirit of yours come from? Because it's very clear that you haven't got a set benchmark for yourself, that it's a thing of, okay, I'm a doctor now, I'm good, or I've got that one media appearance. It feels like you're always pushing the envelope further. So where does that entrepreneurial drive and spirit come from, and where would you want it to see you lead you, do you think?
Yeah, I'd just like to say I really appreciate those kind words you said.
All facts, bro.
Just, where does it come from? I've thought about this a lot on trying to be self-aware.
Yeah.
And I meditate, and I'm trying to understand what drives me, what is my next step. You know, I'm approaching 30 now, and you know, I think sometimes, I was going to say as a man, but as anyone, you think to yourself, okay, you should know yourself by now. You tried a few things here and there, so what am I going to be building? And what's driven me so far is the opportunity that's in front of us. Every day I look around, my colleagues in media and in research, and I think there's so much opportunity here. And sometimes the opportunity is a little bit suffocating in a negative and positive way, where I'm thinking, wow, and you can almost feel like there's so much I can do. What do I pick? But then having, being able to manage your ambition,
Yes.
and having a bias towards action, a bias towards doing something, because when you feel overwhelmed by the amount of opportunity, sometimes you can feel like, let me just go and have a nap, or let me just go out.
Me. Yeah, that's me, yeah.
Yeah.
I just sleep when I'm stressed, yeah. That's me.
And that's important.
Yeah.
Sleep, well-being. It's one of the pillars. You know, but in terms of where the entrepreneurial spirit comes from, the best way to put it is that there's so much opportunity. I'm so excited about it that being entrepreneurial about it is the best way forward. And I'd also like to say that part and parcel of being entrepreneurial is following your own advice and making decisions for yourself. And advice, you get advice from the internet, you get advice from your parents, your friends, and your teachers, and everyone. And managing the advice that people give to you, I think, is really important, because when a lot of people give you advice, they're thinking of themselves, and you might have a different prerogative, you might have different aims in life. And also, some people aren't the best at communicating advice, but they mean well. Yeah. So, but you need to think, what do you want and what makes sense to you? And the only way I feel that you can understand what makes sense to you is understanding the fundamentals of what you're trying to do. So for business, I think that's the best example I can use. For your particular vision on what you're trying to build, you need to understand, okay, no one else is going to have as clear of a picture as I do of what I'm trying to build. And the more innovative it is, the harder it is to communicate that. Because the words that we use, they're not perfect in terms of the multifaceted visions that we have. Words aren't perfect for that. So because you can't communicate that, and it's always going to be imperfect, you need to be able to understand that only you will know the right answer in the end. So take the advice as you will, but understand that your advice is going to be the best.
No, that's a really good response, and it neatly wraps up sort of what my last question was going to be, which was just advice you would give to anyone sort of watching this interview about, you know, if they're there and they're thinking, okay, how do I effectively manage responsibilities or opportunities or just multitask? So you've nicely answered that. So the last question I do want to ask is, for anyone out there that wants to become a doctor or enter into the world of science or medicine, what would you suggest to them as a sort of a starting point? Let's imagine they're sort of pre-A-level age or around that A-level time, and they want to go into the world of medicine, even a bit older potentially. From your experience, what would you say in 2022 they need to be thinking about? Because, you know, 20 years ago it was different. You know, the industries are always changing. So what would you advise to somebody that wants to enter into the industry that you're in? And what's the ways to go about that? Very briefly, if you can.
Yeah. medicine is an all or nothing thing. So don't look around when you want to do medicine. Don't think about other opportunities. After you become a doctor, or at least after you get medical school, then you can start to look around for a bit. But there's a bottleneck, especially when you're going in from when you're 18. On the good side, there's many more opportunities to go to medical school outside the UK, where essentially it's not really about your grades, it's not really about your natural aptitude, it's more about how hard you try. Because, you know, when it comes to A-levels, you can memorize the mark scheme to at least get the grades that you need. We're not talking about physics. You know, we're talking about a lot of memory work. And so it's all about your willpower. It's not about other things, and it's all about how much you want to do it.
Amazing, amazing. And just another question off that. Have you got any exciting projects or things that you're working on right now that you'd like to share with us? Anything top secret that the world doesn't know about yet? Or anything that's out there that you want to put out there, are you happy to share with us?
Yeah, definitely. Over the last 2 years, I've been working with some other machine learning engineers and some other doctors on a project that really amalgamates the different elements that we've been talking about, technology, innovation, healthcare, and well-being. And it's a dashboard that brings together your clinical information and gives you actionable insights, your nutrition information, your fitness information, and your psychological information from different apps that you love and that are really good, whether it be Headspace, Calm, the labs that look at your bloods, nutrition. And that might seem a bit overwhelming, but we try to put it in a format where it's as easy as possible, effortless to interact with, and as easy as possible to know what to do to reach your goal, whether that be having more energy, being more relaxed, being in better shape, being healthier, living longer. A good example is, instead of typing in your nutrition information, you just take a picture, and it analyzes it for you. And so this is called Optimus Health, and we're trying to build a bigger team right now. So if there's anyone that watches this that is thinking about getting more involved in health technology and the entrepreneurial world, then we're happy to hear from you.
For sure, no, we'll definitely have your contact details, email or whatever, sort of as a link somewhere on the screen or in the bio. But
follow the link below. Like, subscribe, Norman.
But no, when can we ideally hope to sort of see this, out there, sort of on the App Store or downloadable? So if I want to get it, when do you suspect that I could get access to it? Do you have an idea at this point? Or?
We're going to be launching in 2 weeks.
2 weeks? Okay, cool.
On the apps on iOS and Android, and it's called Optimus Health.
All right, so we're filming this on February 26th, 2022. So by the, let's say, 10th or 12th of March, let's say by 15th, it should be out. So we're going to hold you to account, because if it's not, then
yeah,
we've got problems. Because I want to change my life like today. So I'm waiting for that app. But no, honestly, that sounds really exciting.
Thank you.
Awesome. On that note, all I can say is, it's been great picking your brain for the last 20 minutes or so. Thank you so much. We literally discussed everything from virtual reality to the future of health tech to experiences on the front line in the midst of the pandemic. So just your advice to people out there on how to effectively manage their time or to enter into the industry you're in. So all I can say is just thank you for really sharing your experiences and your wealth of information with myself, because I've learned a lot from this interview and the people that will soon watch this. So thank you very much for your time. We really enjoyed this interview, and thank you very much for coming through.
Thanks, Norman. I really appreciate that.
Awesome. All right, all the best. And that wraps up this episode of Our World with Norman Busigu. So until the next time, stay safe and stay blessed.